And there's YouTube. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's Monday, the 27th of November. And yay. Reason the cameras weren't set, if you watch this recording, of course, is yet another faultless launch. But I basically had to do something about this new Opal webcam, which is astonishing, really, really amazing. Because that's what I'm going to be using for story mechanics. So that necessitated getting hello everybody, I had the computer that you've seen that's run all of our Stratosphere Lounge shows for 10 years is a Mac Pro late 2013 model, which I realize is now 10 years old. And the reason I realize it's 10 years old is because you simply can't put the new input into it. It requires USB-C with self-powering and stuff. And I certainly didn't want to spend any extra money, but I did want the new show to look good. So I was originally going to put everything behind me here, put the Opal webcam over here. But what I had to do was I went out and bought basically the cheapest Mac I could find that would handle the new webcam. And then I realized I'm going to do story mechanics over there, shooting that way, which no one's ever seen before. So here's your little preview. So that's where. Oh, ships in rough waters here. So that's where I used to shoot the virtue signals, and where I will be shooting the upcoming things to come thing. That TV screen was the background. I was facing the other way. There was a camera there. I took that out for the time being, and it's going to shoot that way. So we're going to have the webcam on that table there, and it's going to shoot that way. And we're going to have the room completely relit with all those cool little lights, and it'll be a completely new set look. No one's ever seen that aspect of the studio before. We get the story mechanics banner up there. We'll backlight that, put it up against the white wall, get that ready to go. Hopefully we'll get that done tomorrow. After a mere 5 weeks of delays, or whatever the case may be now, something close to that. We're taking the new site live tonight. We had to, last time we did a new site was I think on election night of 2020 or 2020. And, or maybe even earlier, maybe it was 2018. In any event, it wasn't working, and it was a bloody catastrophe. So one of the things that has taken so long has just been to knock as many bugs out of it as we could, thanks to all the beta testers out there. Hang on a second. Get all this stuff organized. So most of the time for the last several weeks has been just polishing up the formatting and knocking these bugs down one by one. But when we set it up for beta testing, there were a couple of points that a couple of people saw in common. I think we've got those nailed. So later tonight, we are putting this puppy out there finally at long last. And I don't know if I made this completely clear, but obviously everything else that I wanted to do has been on hold for this. Castellan wants to know where the Gorn is. There's been a great deal of concern about the Gorn. Hang on a second. We're fine. He's totally okay. I'm totally okay. Totally okay. He's going to be making an appearance in the other room there. We're just going to put him over there and probably, I almost said hang him from the ceiling, but suspend him from the ceiling is probably the term I was using. But you can see he's quite a big fellow, actually. I don't think we've ever really seen him to scale. He's a large enough dude. So he will be, oh, look at this. Check that. Oh. I feel like Barbie. Something like that. Eventually, you get the idea. So he's fine. James D. Kirk, the Starship Enterprise, is fine. Matter of fact, everybody's fine. So this thing that I talked about with shooting the other room, not only gives us a new look, it gives me considerably more and wider room. And so I can put more of these little guys in here. Be merciful. For I think of that in Philadelphia 42. So Yeah, that'll be pretty groovy. Why were you up at 3 o'clock this morning? Well, I'm always up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I actually slept late today. I just had my alarm up for 8 o'clock, and that's just not going to happen. I can't show Shatner and the Gorn playing video games, I'm sorry to say, although I do like it. And I've got a lot of room over there. So I finally managed to hook up the Opal. And I have two feelings about it. One of it, the picture quality is unbelievable. And secondly, I'm going to need so much lighting and makeup because I turned that thing on and I was like, oh my God, who is this? Who's this crypt keeper compared to the youthful guy you see right before you here. But it's going to give us a chance to do a lot of fun stuff. We got a lot of room. I haven't touched the layout of the studio in 10 years. So that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, Joe Buck was given the Gorn an evil eye there. And I've got this stand that the Shatner thing is on. It's perfect. I ordered a few more of those. I've got some suspension cables, things to hang, and some backlighting and stuff. So it's going to be pretty cool. And the website is everything. We couldn't do any of the new shows. John's been back for a month almost. And I didn't even contact him yet because, there was no point in starting a whole new series and having people say, this is fantastic. I'd love to sign up. Critical error. No, not going to be doing that. So anyway, what we're going to do is we've tested the membership thing out several times, many times, and it seems to be working. There are one or two issues that apparently are related to the fact that it's not at billwhittle.com. It's on a separate independent test slate. The developer assures me that when we move those over, that'll go away. But we had people attempting to sign up on the test site. That worked out fine. And some people needed to, some people didn't. I guess it'll depend on the cookie settings or whatever. If it doesn't automatically log you in as a member, you will have to enter your username and password one time only because the whole security system is entirely new. So that'll be that, and that has been working consistently. So we just wanted to knock all the bugs out of this, and it's taken forever, obviously. But anybody who's seen it is real happy with it. I'm certainly real happy with it. So I expect that'll be going up, 4 or 5 hours from now. And I'll do a quick little introduction video just saying, hey, here we are. And thanks for your patience. And we're still undoubtedly going to have to knock a couple little bugs out of it. But it's a fantastic thing. And I don't know why this didn't occur to me. I mean, I assumed it was true, and I thought it was true. But in any event, it's really fast. I was hoping, is it just fast for me here? No, it's fast. It's very much more complex, and it's quick. This is not the new camera, by the way. This is the old camera. I really love this webcam. It says Brio. I've had it for quite a while, and it's fantastic. But the Opal is in a whole other world. And most importantly about the Opal, this thing has basically got one or two settings. The Opal, you set everything. You set the depth of field, color, tint. It's all, you can really tweak it. The problem with people said, is the aspect ratio different? I don't think it's the aspect ratio so much as I think I'm zoomed all the way out. Because I had to disconnect this camera and then reconnect it, and I think that's what caused some of the issues. So yeah, you're definitely seeing more here than you were before, and that would be, yeah. Anyway, it's going to be cool, and we're going to get the thing going tonight. So get the new website up tonight. Finish working on this new studio thing, and then when we have enough of that done, it's not going to take too much more work. We will be able to give Johnny Voigt a call, and we'll start the first of these story mechanic things and see how they go. But I'm very happy with it. And follow up immediately, by the way, like really quickly, maybe even earlier, depending on John's schedule. But get some of these things to come episodes out as well, because I just think about that all the time. So more written firewall type content there. I also picked up one of these after a long last. I haven't even opened it yet. Stream Deck, which I would like to break protocol and have story mechanics actually look like there's some quality and engineering behind it. So I'll get that Stream Deck hooked up, and that should allow me to preload pictures if I want to send pictures to John about something from there, and talk about things, and drum kind of a thing, So I'm looking forward to that. That'll go over there, and we'll get all that stuff straightened out. So, according to plan, this will be the look for Stratosphere Studio forever and ever and ever. Amen. And Stratosphere Studio as well. Story mechanics will be shot on that table, shooting that way. Things to come will be shot using the 4K camera, shooting into the camera the way we did with Virtue Signal, and also. We'll relight the whole thing. The problem with that situation with the TV behind you is it's very, very tough to light me without the reflections being on the screen coming back to the camera. We'll figure it out. So everything's really moving fast now, and we're all set to go and jazzed and all the rest of it. So that's that. Thanks again for your patience. Oh dear. I think the Gorn just, I think one of his 3 hearts just gave out. Now, he's definitely breathing, but he's also horizontal. Castellan says, how long till Gen Z Academy gets going? As soon as we get everything else up and running. It's the great thing about the site is there's so much new stuff there, and I'm going to get all those plates spinning before I get a 4th plate going. So we'll get a couple of things to come in there, get a story mechanics up, and I'm really excited about getting back to Major Mace Mattingly, all that jazz. And then we'll see about what happens with that. Yeah, too much sorry and brandy, exactly correct. Yeah, it's a problem for these guys, because the problem with the Gordon is they don't know how to hold their liquor, or their gunpowder either, apparently. So that's that. It's actually very funny, thank you, Marisha. Gordon down, Gordon down. Yeah, all right. I guess we'll just do mostly questions and stuff tonight. The new site will have, I think I mentioned this on Thursday, the only real deficit with the new site right now is that we're still on the temporary forum. So presumably we'll be able to start populating the forum on the new site. And as soon as this thing is up and running, I'm going to pay somebody to migrate all of the rest of the forum settings over so that we have everything all in one spot. But it's pretty much ready at long last, and it's taken forever, but I think it's really worth it, and I can't wait to hear about your comments on it on Thursday. Okay, so I guess that's about it. I don't know if anybody's seen it. The Daily Wire released the trailer for their comedy movie that I saw them shooting just before they went off to do the Pendragon cycle. It's called Lady Ballers, I think. I don't know if anybody's seen it. Curious if anybody has seen it, actually. So it's a comedy that they did pretty quickly, and Jeremy wrote. I don't know if he wrote it. Jeremy directed it and stars in it, and so we'll see. Yeah, everybody seems to say it looks pretty funny. Yeah, my Welsh was being fairly queer. Yeah, so we'll see. Yeah, dodgeball vibe. I think that's probably exactly what they're looking for. Anyway, we get all this stuff up and running. Start putting some brand new content out there. We'll keep the political stuff free. We'll keep Major Mace Mattingly free. We'll make the story mechanics members only, and put out enough stuff so make people think it's worth the $9.95 a month to be able to listen to these things. So we'll get an idea. All right, so let's see what we can do here. I'm always yelling about how I got to make it a short night tonight, but we do have to bump this website up, and anyway, better to be here than not. So let's see. So here we go. Hope everybody's been well. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I guess I said that on Friday, but here we are with a completely different show than the other show that looks exactly like this. One second. I don't know if the site's been getting worse since we did the clone of it, but honestly, I guess it's because it's probably just something simple like spending a lot of time working on the new site, posting on the new site. But I go back to the old site now, and it's just like, it's unbearable. It's always been unbearable, embarrassing. So we'll lose that Guinness World Record, but what can you do? So 2024 ought to be a bit of a year, actually. Okay. Yes. Thanks again to Eric for curating this stuff. And if you'd like to go out and change your transmission fluid or rotate your tires while the page loads, then feel free to do that. Here we go. We got an Eric Blake, we got a Chris Taylor, we got another Chris Taylor. They're both short, got a Marcia Dark. Yeah, that's about it. If I can avoid spending 45 minutes on each question, might get out of here at a reasonable time, and so on. I mentioned, I think, on Stratosphere Lounge, by the way, that one of the reasons that, and I got to make sure this game is worth the candle here, or the juice is worth the squeeze, as those kids say today. I decided I wanted to improve the audio quality of the Stratosphere Lounge, so instead of just posting it as soon as it was done, I had to load it into Premiere, send it up to Adobe Audition, process the audio, put it back, output it. That took 45 minutes. Upload it took another 45 minutes, and I got way behind on them, like 5 or 6 behind. I'm catching up slowly now. This other machine over there, this machine, as I say, is 10 years old. The one over there is pretty much brand new. And I imagine it's going to take that rendering time from 45 minutes down to about 6 or 4 or something like that. So that will make life a lot easier. And that's it. Okay, here we go. So let's start with Eric Blake. He's first in line. The man with the hats in the office tonight. Come in if you play to win. Sweet. So today, Bill, on the right angle, you noted that our side believes that all of us together are smarter than any one of us. Oh, Bill, if only that were true. I mean, it kind of is up to a point. Bear with me. Okay, I'm bearing. And thank you for spelling bear with me, like as in bear a burden, not B-A-R-E, like I've seen so many times. Like, let's get naked together, because that's something you can't unsee. Leaving aside all the petty squabbling that's been happening lately, the simple fact is that it's just so incredibly difficult for folks on our side to learn to work together, particularly for something big, and that's especially the case with the culture. Mind you, we're sort of learning to culturally unite with the boycott of Bud Light, for example. Yes, but, and just as an interjection, that had nothing to do with the conservative influencers, which I am. I'm so proud to be known as an influencer. I put that down on my resume now. I just eliminate everything else that was on my resume, all of the work I did in astronomy and piloting, all that stuff. No, I'm just Bill Whittle, influencer. If there was ever a word for narcissists in a narcissistic age. And by the way, I want to talk about TikTok, which is the narcissism fuel of the 21st century. Mind you, we're kind of sort of learning to culturally unite with the boycott for Bud Light, for example, but I contend that a destruction effort, is a whole lot easier to team up, that a destruction effort is a whole lot easier to team up for than a construction, or for that matter, a reconquest. Completely agree. It's easy to smash something. Building something is hard. See, when we were talking about blowing stuff up, corrupt education, Roe v. Wade, etc., it's easy to say we believe all of us together are smarter than any one of us, but when it's time to clear the debris and actually work to restore things, suddenly we're all radical individualists again, squabbling over the better way to go. That's one of our most heralded attributes. Individuality is often our greatest weakness. What do you think? Can we fix that? That's a really interesting question. Thank you, Eric. And so let me elucidate on this to a very high level of sophistication. And by the way, Caledon Society for a super chat, thank you. How do you think the decay in music relates to the decay in our culture? Clearly the boomers were magic with music, and the millennials, well, hold that thought, because it's connected to something I want to talk about in a minute. So here's the thing. When I say that all of us together are smarter than any one of us, it's absolutely true. That's more of a it's more of a like together upward kind of thing. Like we can all make decisions like for the country much better than a room full of, political secretaries or bureaucrats or even, military leaders, whatever. The collective wisdom of crowds is, with the whole thing with the weight of the ox and all that other jazz, is overwhelmingly evident that all of us together make much better decisions than a few of us, especially if the few of us think that they're smarter than the rest of us. That's really where the problem is. If they had a little more humility, they'd do much better, and they don't. The reason they're in that room with 5 other guys trying to command the economy is because they all believe that they are the smartest people in the room, and that arrogance and ignorance blinds them. And if they were a little more humble about things like AI and climate change and all the rest of it, we'd be in much better shape. But they're not, so we aren't. So the reason I bring that up is because that's how you collate evidence to form an opinion. Creativity, on the other hand, is pretty much exactly the opposite of that. Instead of starting out with a wide base and then moving up to one individual, here's all the people of the country voting on what we think we should do, and then the president makes a decision and executes. Let's assume you have a president capable of executing a thought. Creativity starts almost exactly the opposite. It starts out with one individual, and then that gets pushed down to an ever wider pyramid base of people who have more specific things to do. So the writer-director's got the vision, the executive producer has enough of the vision to be able to make that thing happen. So that person gets everybody else into place. Then you end up with top people on a movie set or whatever, like the director of photography, sound design, composer, and all the rest of it. And then they all farm their work down to musicians, into grips, into post-production people and PAs and all the rest of the monkeys that you find on any kind of a decent movie set. So the problem with creativity, and that's what we need in the messaging, is creativity, is since it's a reverse of the decision-making process, it actually kind of makes sense that it's so top-heavy. And paradoxically, again, I've never really thought about it this way. So if you're trying to make a decision on something, analyze whether something's true, pick a best economic policy, whatever, your best bet is to let 300 million people take their best individual shot, average the answer, and that will consistently be the best possible answer. Certainly better than 4 or 5 people who think they're smarter than anybody else. No question about that. Going the other way, in the entertainment business, it seems to be consistent with the pattern to the degree that if a wide base to a narrow top is the way to make decisions, and a narrow top to the wide base is a way to make creative content, that's also shown to be true. If 10 people in a room can't plan an economy, then 10 people in a room also can't write anything that's worth writing. You can't write by committee. You really do have to have one person or maybe 2 or 3 people who are very, very closely connected. I think the largest operational number of creative people you could ever get anything of any worth out of is probably around 5 or 6 if they have been together a long time. And the only evidence I have for that is Monty Python, Kids in the Hall, SCTV. Then you've got a small group of highly creative people. But if you try to run any kind of a movie or anything by committee, and you hired the director by committee, and then the director's out there trying to do their vision, and then the network executives say, to Steven Spielberg, this Schindler's List would be really a lot less grim, if you added a talking dog, that kind of thing. Once you get into that territory, you're stuck with these, middle managers who are messing everything up. So I don't think it's a question of having to coordinate at the top, Eric, like we all need to get our message together. I think it's a question of, I think it's, when you say that destroying is easier than creating, I couldn't agree with you more. But if you look at the landscape out there now, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, heaven forbid, but every now and then accidental toot comes out. I don't see very many people out there that are working the reverse flow of this. I don't see a whole lot of people that are working the let's do something creative out. It seems to me that the mechanism of something like Daily Wire or Blazer or whatever is all about criticism. It's what it's built for. It's built to smash things up and destroy enemy arguments. And we've been medium successful with that, but it's not nearly a substitute. I'll tell you a quick little historical story. that I got from doing this Empire of Terror thing. Excuse me. One of the chapters, I forget which episode it was, I think it was Collapse. I called it the War of the Five Armies just because I got to play off of the Tolkien thing. And it had to do with the Russian Civil War. So the Russian Civil War, right after the revolution, Russia pulls out of the Entente, leaves the First World War. The Germans move their troops from the Eastern Front to the Western Front. They do their big Michael offensives in the early part of 1918. They fail. The Americans finally end up on the ground in force, roll up the exhausted Germans. War's over. Second the First World War was over. You get the Russian Civil War. And that consisted of five armies. There were the Bolsheviks, the Reds, and they held the center. They held the St. Petersburg, Petrograd at the time, Petrograd to Moscow corridor and territory around. And then on three different sides of them were three different white armies. There's one to the southwest, one to the south, and one pretty much to the east. These three white armies never communicated with each other. They certainly never got to the point where they were actually taking combined action. It's a fundamental military truism that you want to concentrate as much of your force as possible against the smallest part of the enemy line. That may or may not be true these days, but certainly was true in 1919, 1920. So you've got this white army that has the Reds surrounded, but because of the egos of these three commanders, Denikin, Kolchak, and I forget the other guy, they're simply fighting piecemeal. And I got this from Shelby Foote. One of the advantages that the Confederacy had that allowed the Confederacy to last as long as it did was they had what's called interior lines. So what that means is if you've got essentially let's say you're the Reds and you own this arc here, right? Everything up here is red, and you got white armies here. For the white armies to reinforce themselves, they have to go around the outside perimeter of the lines. But if you're one of the Reds, you can just cut across the arc, and that's much faster and much easier. And so if you hold interior lines, you can reinforce a front. And that's how some of the biggest Confederate victories happened. Chickamauga was a case where they would just finish fighting on the east, and they got everybody on trains and hauled all these Army of Western Virginia soldiers out to the Western Theater, and just got them there in time. And so interior lines are nice. So the Soviets had that, the Reds had that. But the whites never, ever cooperated in any way. But that's not why they lost. And by the way, the Fifth Army was a coalition army of England, France, Britain, the United States, Japan, and I think 9 others. Korea, everybody was in that. And they didn't do anything either, but just march around and bring in supplies. But the reason that the Reds won the Russian Civil War is not because that the whites couldn't get their act together. It's because the White Army, and here's the point, because the White Army wasn't about anything. The mythology of socialism is that everybody loved Lenin, everybody loved the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks were never popular. They never had a majority. Everything they did was enforced by terror. So why is it that these murdering commie bastards were killing all these peasants? How did they win? Well, they won, and a lot of White Army commanders later said that, because the White Army wasn't about anything. They didn't have a vision of the future. They were just we need to return to the old days of the Tsar. Well, if you're a peasant, the old days of the Tsar weren't exactly a ride in the park. The Bolsheviks were worse. They knew it. But that wasn't a unifying vision. And that lack of unifying vision is what cost them the war. And the one thing you can say about the Bolsheviks, one of the few things you can say about the Bolsheviks, is they had their vision, and they had their true believers, and they were ready to die for it. And their ideology was clear. And furthermore, not only did they have a clear ideology, they were and remain absolute masters of propaganda, agitation, and mind control. During the Russian Revolution, Trotsky, who was a rhetorical genius without question, also turned into a military genius. He's the only one of these intellectuals who was actually practical in the field. So Trotsky invented the Red Army, and he invented the blocking battalion, where you would send soldiers into a fight, and you'd keep a significant number of guys back towards your rear area, and you'd set them up with machine guns, and your guys would attack, and if they decided to retreat, you would just start machine gunning your own guys in order to encourage the others. That was Trotsky's invention. But Trotsky traveled the interior lines back and forth throughout the entire Civil War. It was everywhere he needed. Whenever things were starting to crumble, Trotsky was like there. And his armored train had like 6 or 7 cars with it. So it was armored, and it was a train. That's why you call it an armored train. But not only did it have weapons, it had printing presses, it had a band, photography, film studios, had music, it had its own printing presses. It was a mobile mobile political enforcement device. So you get the point. The Reds were badly outnumbered, and the Whites had all of the former Tsarist officers. It should have been a cakewalk, and they damn near lost. By the way, the Reds nearly lost it. If 2 of the 3 white armies had been able to get together, that probably would have done it, but they didn't. So the reason I bring that up, Eric, is because it sounds kind of like our situation here today. We've got all these forces on the board. They're scattered all over the place. No one really wants to cooperate with anybody else, but much more importantly, no one individual of these conservative juggernauts has a unified vision of what it is we're selling. And that's a real problem. In fact, I think that's the problem. There is a great deal of criticism and resistance to democratic policies, which is important. But what the Russian Civil War teaches us, among many other wars, is that people can have their houses burned down, and they can say one person is worse than the other. Then, well, why don't you go for the guy who's not so bad? It's like, well, I don't know what they want me to die for. At least I know what these guys want me to die for. There's a vision there, and if there was ever a political movement that you could outvision, it's the Bolsheviks, but they just couldn't do it. So what it really comes down to is, it's not a question, I think, of getting Daily Wire and Crowder and all these other people to cooperate, and all these internal fights with Crowder and Candace Owens and Pearl, and I just don't get it. It's like watching what it is. It's like watching an A-10 roll in on a battlefield position, do a strafing run. You find out it just blew up you just killed 45 guys and 7 Humvees because you're too busy attacking everything, you didn't even identify the target. It's just nothing worse than friendly fire. It's heartbreaking. It's almost unbearable. So I see this again and again, and I ask myself, why this fight with from Crowder with Daily Wire? Why is Daily Wire and Candace Owens having this fight? I'm not saying you can't fight with people, can't saying you disagree, but Ronald Reagan and his 11th commandment, man, thou shalt not speak ill of other Republicans. That's because we're so culturally outnumbered. You can't. It's like, imagine you're sending a SEAL team in to go get bin Laden, right? You got 10 guys, 12 guys, or whatever. You got an entire compound full of enemy soldiers, and you got all the night vision, you've all trained together and all the rest of it. And just as they're breaking into the compound, your SEALs start getting into a fist fight about who's going to go up the stairs first, And then some guy shoots another guy because he gets so angry. And then finally one guy walks up and says, I'm out of here, I'm done. I was supposed to be first. That kind of thing. It's like, it's just insane. And it's all ego, man. And that's it. You're allowed to disagree, obviously. I'm not expecting everybody to get along. I'm not expecting Crowder to be happy with his deal. I'm not expecting Ben to be happy with Candace Owens or vice versa. But this is the kind of thing you handle in a meeting, in a room, privately. To put it out there like this, I can't see any other explanation for it. It's just plain raw vanity. It's ego. Oh, I've been hurt, I feel like I've been offended. Well, I feel like I've been offended too, but I don't talk about it out in public. I just want to have, a unified front here. So you get the idea. I think, yes, they act like children. Well, it happens to everybody, I think. And I talked about this last show, I think, or last studio or last lounge. But I had this beaten out of me in my mid to late 20s when the only chance I had to direct a feature film, which I finished, went down in flames. Half the money came out, and it was just a catastrophe that sent me into a 20-year depression, you know. But it broke me of that kind of overconfidence, that kind of arrogance of big success, you know. And you need a kick in the chops every now and then, and I got a good one. So I think once that happens to you, you get inoculated, and I hope so. But I don't know. I don't see anything out there that's I don't see anything out there that's like, here's the message, you know. That's what I actually liked about the virtual presidency, to be honest with you, was it was all about solutions, and I need to get get the site open. But then I will open a virtual presidency page. We did 12 episodes. It was just for members, but that was 2013. I think by now we can release it. It's on DVDs, and I don't think anybody has DVD anymore. Eric says that Jeremy's statement on Twitter that Candace wouldn't be fired, and then they stopped fighting. You know, I guess somebody cracked the whip, but the damage is done, you know. And guys like the Young Turks and all the rest of these lunatics just had a field day with it, and I don't get it. In any event, oh, thank you. Roadrunner's got the DVD. It's an awesome DVD. Nobody's got a DVD player anymore. You'd all have to go and buy DVD players. So after 10 years of exclusive ownership and signed copies, guys, I signed thousands of those things. It was an enormous pleasure to do it. I'd sign, I don't know, 60, 70 at a time, maybe 200 on a weekend, something, that kind of thing. To do that 10 times, a lot of signing. But kind of back to the point, the virtual presidency was about solutions. I mean, that's what it was all about. Here's how you fix healthcare. Here's how you fix the military. Here's how you fix legislation. Here's how you fix all of these things. And that's the last time I saw it. You know, last time I ever saw anything that was an attempt to fix things in goodwill. None of that virtual presidency was an attack. It's just like hey, you know. I remember the one on healthcare. It was real clear. It was just, I'm holding up a single aspirin, you know, and I said, this is an aspirin. If you buy it at oh, come on, what's the name of it? Like a big Walmart or Costco. If you buy this in a 200 tablet jar at Costco, it's about 2 cents a tablet. If you go to the hospital and you check your insurance payment bill, you'll find that this 2 cent tablet has been $20 on your. That's what they charge you for each one of these individual aspirin tablets. So we're not going to solve the healthcare problem until we understand why this 2 cent tablet is not being sold for charged for 20 cents or $2, but rather $20. It's 2-3 orders of magnitude more than what it should be. That's our problem right there. And I'm not talking about Democrats or anything, although I'm talking about their policies. So it's just boom, you know. I'm definitely going to bring that back. I'd forgotten how much I liked that, how good I thought that was. And now it's time to slicken things up, to enslicken them, as Jebediah Springfield would probably say. An enslickened mind encounters no snags. I should have a statue of me. That's a good idea. Eric said this virtue signal's pretty much run its course. Maybe we can do a show with Zoe about solutions. Perhaps, yeah. But this is what things like Mace Mattingly are for, and you know, and the whole story mechanics thing is really to get people who are not interested in conservative politics at all. Oh, look, there's John Voight. They're interested in movie making or storytelling. We keep politics completely out of that. It's going to have its own separate channel. It'll be posted on BillWhittle.com, obviously, but you get all of that. So that's an attempt to kind of spread the message out there and get it said. But whenever this topic comes up about, you know, where's the positivity of the message, I always go right back to that Virgin America safety dance thing. I mean, it's 4 or 5 minutes long. I got off of the plane. I was flying Virgin America at the time. Got off the plane, saw their new video. I had heard the safety instructions on an airplane hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. Hundreds, certainly. And I found myself driving home saying, I can't wait to see that again online. And I just realized somebody somehow has put information together in such a way that the most boring information that there is, here's how you operate a seatbelt, here's how you put on your life jacket, not only got through, but got through in such a way that I want more of it. I want to see it again. I want to hear it again. You do something like that with the Constitution or any of these principles, something fun and cool, slick looking, with like really, really top-notch director of photography, really, really, really shot well and not just some guy standing in front of a burning lake of fire or whatever. You can really get there. And humor is a big, I saw the word coming from, Electric Lock 18 said maybe go a step upwards on the ridiculousness scale like Doomcock or Javier Milei. That way the presentation comes off as less condescending and more humorous. Yes. Mace Mattingly is that. That's certainly self-mocking in a way. It's, the whole vibe of it is you've got a guy who's going to be surfing the lunar mountains. These guys are going to be racing dune buggies, going to be playing football on the moon. That by itself alone says we're not taking this stuff too seriously. We're not lecturing people. We're just having fun. And so I'm very, very excited about getting back to that. Very excited. As a parenthetical on that, because we'll move on after this question, I hope I got that for you, but as a parenthetical on Mace Mattingly, things are moving so fast now. I mentioned a couple times this new software where you can do the whole show with your eyes off axis like I'm doing now, where I'm not looking at the camera, I'm just reading a script or whatever, and then it will use AI to redo the whole thing with your eyes centered. I suspect we are probably within a year, I think certainly within 2 years, of being the end of the motion capture suit. That all of the sensors, all of the recording, all of the tracks, and then cleaning up the tracks and getting the noise out of the recording and the alignment and the drift and all that. I think we're very, very close to having those things just be, wagon wheels or baleen corsets. We're really, really at the point now where I've seen demonstrations of it, where you can basically just stand in front of it helps if you're in front of a blank wall or a white wall. Just stand there and do it, and then the AI will break down what your motions have to be in order to make that happen. If that's the case, then that's as simple as it gets. Instead of me having to get in this motion capture suit and sync up all the rest of this stuff, I just walk around. I just go and sit in it, and this thing just turns it into an Unreal Engine motion capture file, and boom. But I do have the motion capture suits here. I'm ready to go. There's just been one damn thing after another, and we're finally going to get a big step tonight when we push the button on this thing. So yes, story mechanics is trying to be positive. Things to come is not so much destructive as it is predictive. I've got a dark motif for that, and it feels dark, but I actually think that of all the things that have happened to me in the last year, this fourth turning thing has cheered me up more than anything. I mean, really, really fundamentally changed my view of things. If you believe time is linear, we're clearly on a downward slope, and that's just going to end in the toilet. But if time is circular, as this theory suggests, then we are right where we were several times before. We're on the downward swing, going from the falling apart into the crisis, and then be on the other side. So things to come is an attempt to predict what that's going to look like. And since I mentioned this show, I've gone from watching a lot of body cam footage for the last, because I just binge this stuff. It's just data, just soaking up data on things that I find interesting. So I just soak up a lot of evidence. And lately I've been watching a significant number of videos that deal with women's reactions to the whole, the whole slutification of America. You can be a boss bitch, and you can sleep around all you want to, and you can have all the things that men have always had, and you can do whatever you want to, and then they're just alone, and they're either bitter or they're filled with despair, and they're beginning to realize, yeah, I slept with 300 guys through my 20s, so what? That shouldn't count against me. Turns out it does, and you can't unscrew those guys. You're stuck with it, and I'm watching this again and again and again now. The thing I think probably the longer I think about it, the clearer I get. We're going to have a crime problem. We're going to have a violence problem, a lawlessness problem, but ultimately, it's going to be like yellow fever, except instead of it being a debilitating physical sickness, I firmly believe we are heading into an emotional illness pandemic, the likes of which we have never seen, ever in the world. Never seen so much emotional damage and so much mental illness that's just going to have to be treated, because it's just driving people nuts. As a small aside to this, one of the things that I've been watching a lot of are these videos, and one of the fairly frequent themes of these things are women who got divorced and then regret getting divorced. 80% of divorces are initiated by women in this country, and 90% of them if they're college educated. And so these particular videos are not an interview thing. Nobody's going asking them questions. TikTok is, thank you, Eric. Bill Whittle is Dr. Harry Sheldon, psychohistorian. We're going to be in trouble, but instead of it being 4,000 years, we can cut it down to 300 years. How do I put this? TikTok, I talked to a friend of mine named Alex Campbell, who's 10 years younger than me. He's Gen X, and we were both working in the business together. He was a producer, I was a editor, writer, and stuff. And in the late 90s, we did a bunch of stuff for Discovery Channel and just good segments, just really good segments. He's an old friend of mine. He was in the comedy group that I did back in Gainesville in 95, 96, 7, so on. And somewhere, I don't know, right around 2000, a while ago, he said, and he's talking about Gen X and maybe some Gen Y, he said, everybody in my generation expects to be famous. They did a survey and they said something like 67% or something of Gen Xers expected to be famous. And that was a long, long time ago. What happens with TikTok is it allows people to act like they're famous. And I don't know how else to put it. To do what I do, or what Crowder does or Matt Walsh does, they do the same thing. Here's my opinion on things, and they get listened to by 40 people or 400 or 4,000 or whatever, or 40,000 or more. But it's basically what TikTok has become in this particular aspect of our upcoming crisis is it's a diary. It's a diary, and when women would be upset in the olden days, they would write their feelings down in their diaries. And talking about it is really useful for women. They really need to talk about these things. So prior to social media, they'd go home and they'd be heartbroken, stood up on a date or whatever, and they'd just write it down in their diary and get it out, and that was private between them. Or maybe they talked to a friend or two. But with social media, not only do they do it in public, and not only do they get the emotional reward of sympathy from people, but the main thing that I've realized is catastrophic about this is, in the case of women in divorce and so on, here's how it works. Some woman is unhappy in her marriage, let's say she's got plenty of decent reason to be unhappy in her marriage. So what happens is she goes on to Reddit or something, and she finds a subgroup on Reddit or some other people on TikTok, and she starts talking about how unfair this guy is to her. And here's where the real poison is. That individual gets immediate emotional validation and support, and they get this endorphin rush from people who they don't know, and more importantly, who do not know their husband or know anything about this relationship. They don't have the faintest idea. They just know what this woman is saying, and they go someplace where it's a validation factory. And everybody in there is to validate everybody else's opinion. So this woman who's having problems in a marriage, and everybody has problems in a marriage, is no longer listening to a pastor or even her best friend. Now she's listening to strangers who are there specifically in the men are no good subreddit, whatever. And they're telling her, I can't believe you put up with this after all the things you said he's done to you. He did this? Yes, he did this. He said, oh my God, that's outrageous. Girl, you got to get out of there. You got to leave. There's hundreds and hundreds of men waiting to just can't wait to date somebody just like you. And so they don't get the kind of advice that a friend would give because the people who are giving them advice have never met them. And this whole thing has just turned into it's not even Tsar Bomba anymore. It's an asteroid impact of just monumental proportions where everybody is reinforcing everybody else's need to feel good about something. And it's basically the emperor's new clothes written in gigantic gold letters. I'm very unhappy in my marriage. Well, you shouldn't have to put up with that. You're a queen. You've got all this other thing. He's lucky to have you and blah, 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 blah. You should get out of that marriage. And so they do. They get out of that marriage because they're friends on Reddit. They're friends on Reddit who know nothing about it other than what they told them on Reddit said, you shouldn't put up with this. So they get out and they get divorced. And it's almost always the women, not always, but almost always. And so they think I can do better. I'm just going to trade up. I'm not going to put up with this. I don't need a Tunguska, big booty, a Tunguska of narcissism. Well put. So they just say, all right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go live my own best possible life. I don't need no man and all the rest of it. Next thing you know, they're single. They can't see their kids anymore, or at the very least, they don't see as much of them anymore. The kids usually resent them for having broken up the family. The dad has had most of his stuff just taken away from him. He's no longer living in a nice house. He's got an apartment now, and he's got to pay for the child support and the alimony and all the rest of it. She's out there dating all these guys and living her kind of slut ideal that she's been told is what women should have in order to be equal to men. And so the next thing you know, she's out there and she's starting to run through these guys, and at first it's a little bit liberating, but rapidly, and I mean within like a couple of weeks, they begin to realize, how come I'm not getting any relationships? And the sad, cold truth of it is because you're on dating apps, you're getting 12, 15, 20 results. There's probably 20 men for every woman on a dating app, and you're only going out with the guys you think are attractive, and those guys have got 50 women like you. And so they go out there and they go, my God, he just ghosted me. I was driving to the date and I went to text him and saying, I'm inside the restaurant. Where are you? Blocked, ghosted, and they don't know what happened. They're completely mystified. All their friends told them, oh no, the guy's be falling down for you. Doesn't work that way. So all of these women who are either single or in the process of becoming single, all think they're going to land that top 10% of the guys. That top 10% of guys out there have 50 women, and he doesn't have to take no offense to women who are in their 30s or anything, but this is just the dynamic of how it works. All of her friends told her to leave the marriage. She's got 3 kids. She's 36 years old, right? So she left the marriage. Now she's out there dating, and she finds a bunch of hookups. But when she wants to get serious, there's nobody taking her seriously. This 10% of guys that are getting swiped right have more options than she can imagine. They can go out with 22-year-olds, and they can pick whoever they want to. And all of this because of the complete lack of virtue. That's really what it is. When Andrew was pushing back against the Pearl thing, Pearl was basically saying this is what it's like out there. And Daily Wire said, how dare you criticize marriage? I don't think she's criticizing marriage so much as she's criticizing the material. If you were out in the marriage market today and you saw this material, either men or women, you'd have a completely different opinion on it. But Drew said something which is the secret to success. He said, look, I've been married for 43 years, and here comes the operative phrase. My wife was with me when I was nothing, when I was nobody, when I was a struggling writer. She was there. She was supporting me. She believed in me. She believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. That woman earned him She earned a guy like that. And these young women now are just filled with rage and hatred and entitlement. And I'm the top prize. I'm a 10. Everybody's a 10. And I want a guy with the sixes, right? I want a guy with a six-pack, the six-figure income, and 6 feet tall or higher. And when they're confronted with the reality that it's not going to happen, they go to social media to say, I'm not getting any dates, and the ones I am getting are not sticking around. And instead of having a real friend, which is somebody who's known them her whole life, who could sit down and say, listen, you made a big mistake leaving this marriage, No, what they get is, don't you worry, you will manifest him. You just believe he's on his way. Believe me, he's coming. You are a prize. You're a queen. You are absolutely a prize for any man out there. And they just listen to this because it makes them feel better. And then, there you go. We're going to have, by 2030 or 2050, I think it might be 2030, 45% of the women in this country will be unmarried and childless. 45%. That means that means, if I'm right about this, invest in pet supplies. And when it dawns on half of the female population, that's just the half of the female population that's unmarried. There's going to be a large number of married women that are also going to be, I've got to get out of this nightmare that I'm in because I think I could do better. That's really what a lot of these 90% divorce rates are among college-educated women. This guy does something that bothers them, and so they decide, well, screw it, I'll just trade up. What's the downside? I'll get half of his stuff. He'll keep paying for me. I'll just go out there and find myself a better guy, because I'm a queen, I'm a princess, and I'm a prize, and I'm a 10. And then boom. So I'm concerned about what the boom is going to do to us. Eric says, so sad about how Drew keeps having interviews about men going their own way, but it's always with someone who's not from the MGTOW community, MGTOW or whatever. Needless to say, the video's comments are always filled with MGTOW guys who call out how Drew and the other person just aren't getting it. Yes, that's right, they're not getting it. They're not getting it. Guys like Drew and Jeremy and Ben and Matt here, somebody like Pearl saying that marriage is just an insane idea for men today. And they're saying, oh, Pearl's against marriage. No, she's not saying that at all. She's saying, you don't understand the material that you're trying to make a marriage out of anymore. You got to build a house out of bricks. We're not even building a house out of mud. We're building a house out of slime. There's nothing here to construct with. And for those young women who are out there saying, we'll never find a good man, and well, if you've slept with 50 guys trying to find, you're not sleeping with 50 guys trying to find the man of your dreams. You're sleeping with 50 guys because you can, and you've been told that it's what you should be doing as a stunning, brave, bold, independent, powerful woman. And then the next thing you know, guys start asking you about, why do you have this tattoo sleeve, or why do you have these tattoos all over here? Even who are those for? And they start saying, well, my past shouldn't matter. I'm ready to settle down now, so I should be able to just find a man, and he should just love me for who I am. And men are looking at this and saying, 60 guys by 22, 23? No, I think I'll pass on that. I think I'll pass on that. And the women can't understand it. They just can't. That's not fair. It's perfectly fair. The thing that this is why I like Kevin Samuelson and was such a Kevin Samuelson binge several months ago, is because he just gave it to him, both barrels to the face, point blank. Just did. It was just watching them wake up. He was doing it for their own good. And basically, what he would basically say is, listen, you're 34 years old, you've got 3 kids, you're single, you left your husband, and you think you're going to get a 6-foot-tall man who's making $500,000 a year, goes to the gym every day. This guy can have anybody he wants. And when a guy who approaches you for a date, it turns out the guy's a plumber, or he drives an Accord or something, he's beneath you because you're such a prize. That whole lie is coming down hard. It's going to come down really, really hard. And women have been told by other women to do things that are against their biological nature, and it is going to be a mental health catastrophe, the likes of which we have never seen, ever. And that's what the crisis is going to be. Saw our good friend Lord Bias. Women have been lied to their entire lives, mostly by other sad and lonely women. Yes. So that's how it works. It started out with a bunch of angry women. I remember the 70s. I remember the women's liberation movement and male chauvinist pigs and all that other stuff from the 70s. And these were women who were really, really angry. And okay, so and some of the things they were fighting for, there was some limited access and some, there might have been some pay differences, I don't remember them, but they certainly existed in the past. And listen, sweetheart, go get me a coffee, that kind of thing. Okay, fair enough. But as usual, the loonies just kept leading the charge, and they kept pushing for more and more and more. And I don't know when the woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle thing happened, but I want to say it was about 20 years ago. And that expression is so offensive to men. But they were just it's my empowerment thing. I'm empowered. Okay. So anyway, there's all those fish out there without bicycles, and it turns out they really would like to have a bicycle, and the bicycles are going to other fish who are not so unpleasant. These young women are not. The older women are scared and angry. It's not a attractive combination. The younger women are clueless and dumb as a box of rocks. Some of these girls on the Whatever podcast, it's got a whole panel of these 22-year-olds. I don't think there's an 80 IQ among any of them. I'm not joking either. I mean, I'm serious as I can be. There's not five. All 8 of them together, I bet you they couldn't name 7 different countries in the world. They're just plain lost. They're worthless in terms of the marriage market. Who would want that? And they think that if they wear these, these low-cut dresses, or they got these tattoos or whatever, and their promise to the guys is, "I'm really excellent slut," they think that's going to do it. No, that'll do it for a Tinder hookup, and then you're going to wonder why you got ghosted on the second date, and it's because nobody wants to go out on the second date with you because, well, first of all, you're not as hot as you think you are, and secondly, you're insufferable, entitled, stupid, loud, demanding, obnoxious, vile person. And we're getting to be tens of millions of those out there. And the men, of course, are in this as well. These young men are, they've been told for 2-3 generations now they can't be men. The men are actually doing something kind of sensible. I mean, this men going their own way thing is, you can decry it and you can say it's the end of civilization and all the rest of it. But what you can't do is you can't say it doesn't make any sense, because it makes perfect sense. If your choice as a young man, now 25 years old or something, is to get married to somebody whose job is to criticize you and belittle you, talk about toxic masculinity, talk about how she's going to be the boss bitch and she's going to do all these other things, and then you realize that she's already slept with 60 guys and that you will be number 61, and if you marry this person and she decides that she's tired of it, then she's going to take half of your stuff. There's no way to make marriage make sense in a world like that, and this is what guys like Ben and Jeremy and Matt and Andrew don't get. They don't understand it. The material to build on, the virtue of women, is just not there anymore. And I'm not saying men haven't gotten worse either, not by any means, but the men are just tired of being told not to be men. That's why it's such a great expression, men going their own way. It's perfect. It's not men rebelling against feminism. It's not men leading a self-esteem movement. It's not men demanding change. No, it's just men going their own way. It's not worth it. I got my video games, and I got my Tinder, and I'll just hang out and hang with the guys and do that. There you go. In the huge number of these kind of reaction videos to these women who are having various stages of mental breakdowns, they did one where there were a series of women who seemed to get it. And there was this one young woman who basically was saying, she said something to the effect of, you're out there on OnlyFans and you're dancing like a slut, and you wonder why nobody is taking you seriously, why you don't have a male and everything. It's because you're a slut, you're a tramp. She says, it's not that I don't know how to dance. I know how to dance. I'm just going to dance for the right guy. I'm waiting for the right guy. Sold. So anyway, we're going to have a lot of crazy to deal with, and I mean serious crazy, not just annoyed. If if you've seen some of these arrests, these body cam footages, there's a lot of defiant men out there, but the women are just plain bat guano nuts. It's not a question of, I need a therapist, you need an exorcist. Crazy. Edward says, Gummins, I wonder if Bill's not like those conservatives who only criticize to know he's being one right now. You see what that means? Is Bill reaching those people here tonight? Is this subject rather a squirrel frame? No, I'm just trying to go about what seems to be the nature of the biggest problems in our society out there. And Eric's question fundamentally came down to what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it other than criticizing it? You can't understand the problem unless you understand the problem. And I'm trying to get my handle on the problem. And then it just becomes a messaging issue. And I think I mentioned this on Stratosphere Lounge show. If women don't understand why men are acting the way they're acting, just reverse it. Let's just say in the 1970s, a group of men came along and started a men's liberation movement. And they told the men that what they really should have is all the things that women have. They should have the ability to be taken care of. They should have the ability to run away from things that frighten them. They should have the ability to be protected and all the rest of it. And this men's liberation movement basically told 2-3 generations of men that what women really want are men who are weak, scared, and hysterical. That's what they actually want. And you have a right to be weak, scared, and hysterical. You shouldn't have to go out and do all those manly things like, women and children first on the lifeboats, or here come the people down from the hills with their swords. I got to take a pitchfork and run. You guys run the other way. I'll go out this way, see if I can slow them down. And men just realize, no, they should have all of the things that women want. They're entitled to have all of the benefits of women. And what they really need to do is learn how to become more dependent, more emotional, more sensitive, cry more, and women will love that. That's what women want. There's not a woman in the world who could hear that story and say, that's insane. We can't stand that. Well, now you're halfway there, madam. You've been told for 40 years now that the best thing you can do is to be as masculine as possible. Successful, aggressive, strong, bold. You're not wired that way. And if you were, you wouldn't be crying about it on TikTok, because I don't see men crying about this stuff on TikTok. I see them drinking themselves to death or hanging out with their buddies or whatever, but you get the idea. And one of these guys pointed out, it's like they've made it into a war. I was there when this started. I clearly remember when it started. It started, I don't remember the exact year, I could look it up in 10 seconds. It started when Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King played a tennis match called the Battle of the Sexes. And it was a gigantic publicity stunt that made a lot of money for a lot of people. And at the time I was in either junior high or maybe elementary school or just maybe, I don't remember what year. But when it happened, all the girls in the school were rooting for Billie Jean King. All the guys were rooting for Bobby Riggs. And when Bobby Riggs lost, it was, what? What? Really? And then after that, it was the battle of the sexes constantly. And Riggs threw the match. Yes, of course he did. Of course he did. And Bobby Riggs was ranked, 400th or something in the world or something? And Billie Jean King was the best female player there was. Bobby Riggs threw the match. But that's not what people saw. People saw Billie Jean King beating this guy that, you don't need no man. And we can do everything that men can do. I was there when it happened. And I saw the change in people's attitudes after it happened. And I just wish that she had really beaten him instead of having the whole thing be a joke. I don't remember who the male contemporary was, let's say Bjorn Borg. But if Billie Jean King had beaten Bjorn Borg and Bjorn Borg was not in the mood to be beaten, then their entire theory would make sense. But that's not going to happen. So their whole thing's based on a lie. Just based on a lie. And that's, and so here we are, 1973. So I would have been 14. That's right when I started the Miami Planetarium. It would have been 1974. 73, rather. Yeah, I was 14. And it just accelerated from there. It just kept going. And here we are. Here we are. The left has inverted biology as much as they can. And they've told women that the things that make them women are useless, which is nothing men ever said about them. Just basically said, no, you're not a baby machine. Go out there and be an aggressive, strong, rude, ambitious, full-time, 18-hour-a-day executive, and you'll get the big house, and you'll get the big car, and you'll get the big salary, and then the men will be crazy for you. Kevin Samuels, so interesting and refreshing to listen to a couple months ago. He would say, well, what's the problem? Well, I'm not going out on dates. Why? She says, I don't know. I make $400,000 a year. I've bought my own house. I drive a brand new BMW. I'm president of a company. And she's in the middle of this, and Samuelson says, men don't care about that. We don't care. What? No, we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. It's something what we're looking for. So anyway, that's your hour on that one question. So let's see what else we got here. This is where the problem's going to be. It's going to be a mental health pandemic. Chris Taylor, who never lets us down. Bill, as someone who has a personal understanding of addiction and addiction treatment, can you comment on if social media addiction and compulsive TikTok, YouTube watching have any similarity to normally recognized addictions, or if it is just a dramatic choice of words for a bad habit? If so, are there any lessons, preferably good lessons, not lessons on how to make personally destructive but profitable software? Yes, thank you for asking that. Yes, there are enormous similarities. There are, in fact, that question has put this whole issue much more clearly than I'd ever thought about it before. But that's Chris for you. He has a habit of doing that. So yeah, let's talk about that. Here's the first thing you need to understand: that to the degree that I've been there, and I have been there, I've been in various forms of therapy for 10 years of my life, and actively involved in 12-step program for 3 years of my life, like 3 times a day during the holidays, that kind of thing. So I've been there. I wouldn't have been there if I wasn't in a lot of pain, and just because I wasn't an alcoholic or a drug addict didn't mean I wasn't in pain. So here's what I learned about this to answer your question. Alcoholics Anonymous is a 12-step program. Narcotics Anonymous is a 12-step program. There's like Overeaters Anonymous. There's all of this. All of these people who've wrecked their lives through promiscuous sex, gambling, alcohol, narcotics, or whatever the case may be. The reason the 12-step program, it's the exact same program, by the way, the reason it works for all of them is because those are not separate conditions. They're all one same condition that is addiction. It is an addictive personality, and either the food, the narcotics, the gambling, or the sex are self-medication choices that addicts make in order to lessen the pain of their existence. That's the first thing that everybody has to understand. There's no difference between them. That's just the little pachinko ball slot they happen to fall into. This is what cuts my pain best for me. That's why I drink, or that's why I gamble, or whatever. That's no question about that. So when people think about addictions, they think that people are running towards whatever they're addicted to. Like when you think about an alcoholic, you think about it as a person who's attracted to alcohol, or a person who's going after the drugs, or a person who's going after the gambling or the sex, whatever it may be. But that's exactly backwards. They're not running to anything. They're running away from something. And what they're running away from is they're running away from the pain of their own unaltered existence. They are looking for pain relief. It is an emotional root canal that's going on. They are in incredible pain, and they are going anywhere to get rid of it. And then they'll find something that works for a short period of time. And for a short period of time, they'll be out of pain, and that's almost overwhelming in terms of attractiveness for these people. And they know, intellectually, they know full well that by going after these short-term pain relief symptoms of drinking myself crazy or whatever, they know they're making their life worse, and they know they're making the long-term pain worse. They know this. But I don't want to oversell this, but I don't want to undersell it either. If you're being waterboarded, or if somebody's peeling your fingernails off, you're going to say anything to get out of that situation right now. And that's basically what addicts are doing. So when you see somebody who's a formerly successful guy, and he's cruising down the streets, and he's looking for somebody to buy dime bag of crack off of. He knows he's risking his license, his family, his life. He knows all of these things. It's just that for whatever reason, whether he's a doctor or just a complete nobody, he or she knows that, yes, this is long-term going to hurt me, but I don't care about that right now, because right now I've got red hot pokers in my eyes, and I need to get out of this pain now. So once you understand that addicts are running away from something and not towards something, and once you realize that what they're running away from is here's something you need to understand about addicts, and I've only discovered this relatively recently about myself. When I say addicts, I mean all of them: alcoholics, compulsive gamblers, all the rest of them. For people like us, we have no idea. I almost said that the difference between right and wrong, but we don't know how to do the right thing because we have nothing to compare it to. In other words, we can see what healthy people, what healthy children do and how they behave, and we can see them, but it's almost like a Dickensian, it's like Tiny Tim with his little hands placed up against the glass of this restaurant, and everybody in there is just eating this incredible gourmet meal. You're out in the cold, freezing, and hungry. You can see people behaving the way they're supposed to behave. They're disciplined. They get up. They do one thing after the other. They marry the right way. They do all these other things. They don't do anything destructive. Don't sabotage themselves. They got it all together. And we can see them, and we know what it looks like. We just can't do it. And when I say can't do it, conservatives here won't do it, but that's not it. Cannot do it. Don't have the synapses for it. We don't have the synapses. It's not there. Parts of our brains never develop because of abandonment or mistreatment or whatever the case may be. Lack of attention, lack of affection, lack of physical touch, or abuse or trauma or whatever. It's just not there. And it will never be there. That's the part that's so alarming, is that therapy, 12-step programs, medication for mental illness, these things are all crutches, but you do not recover from this. If you're 4 or 5 years old and you didn't get what you needed by then, you're broken for life. And the realization of that is a tough thing to come to. That's not a fun thought, but you will never be able to cope your way through the rest of your life if you don't understand that. You have to understand it and accept it. That's why the first step in the 12-step programs is I realized that I was powerless over my addiction. I couldn't do anything about it. You're broken. It's not a question of willpower. You've got a broken arm, and they're asking you to climb this wall. You've got 2 broken arms. And they're saying, why don't you climb? It's like, I can't. Well, you can't or you won't. I can't. Well, these other people are climbing. Yeah, well, they got arms. You got arms too. Yeah, but mine are broken. See, that's how it works. And so when you get to this point, you just have to realize this. I think the first inclination would be to say it's not fair, but you probably, if you're built like this, you probably gave up on fair by the time you're 5 or 6 years old. The whole idea of fair is out the window for you. So since you don't have this this close bond to parents, and you don't have a fundamental understanding that you can run to your mom or your dad and they will protect you from something, then you're facing the world alone from the time you're 6 years old, 5, 6 years old. You might as well be just thrown out on the street, really, because that's what it feels like. And 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds are not capable of dealing with that. And so, essentially, they stay 5 or 6 years old forever. And the best that you can do is to realize that you got chucked out of the emotional development train. You got thrown off for whatever reason, or you fell off, or whatever. And now you're on the ground, and the train is going, and you're never going to get on that train. You can never catch it. All you can do is figure out how to figure out techniques to just walk as well as you can, and not crawl if you can help it. So once you understand that about addiction, then we get to the point of your question, things like social media, YouTube videos, and so on. It's dopamine hits. Again, the dopamine hit is not something that addicts are chasing so much as it's getting them relief from this ongoing abscess that they have emotionally. So, yes, people will watch 7 hours of TikTok videos instead of going to sleep. They know they have to be up at 7:30 in the morning. They know it's 5 o'clock now. They've been watching TikTok videos for 7 hours. They know this. And they know they should be going to sleep. In fact, they're falling asleep while they're watching it. I'm speaking from experience here. And they don't do it because it's a moment away from the realization of the rest of it. I had he died not terribly long ago. My friend Steve, my best friend growing up, his father's name was Jerry Stipp. One of the three people I admire most in life. He was a geologist. He had a family of 4 plus a wife. He was making $23,000 a year in Florida. He invented a better way to do carbon-14 dating. He took it to the University of Miami. They said no. He risked everything, and went out, started his own business. And that business is called Beta Analytic. Now they handle 93% of the world's carbon-14 samples. And he ended up making a lot of money and retired. And for most of his life, he was dirt poor. And when I met him, he was dirt poor. So he never acted like a rich guy. But on some level, I was kind of the son he never had because his kids were just a little short of, highly motivated. And many, many years ago, I got myself into some financial trouble, and I went to him for a loan, significant size loan. And I was so sick with fear. Not that he would say no, I was just so ashamed of myself, just so embarrassed by it. I would have rather just been hit by the truck than, crawl this way. So I went down, sat him down, and told him the whole thing. And I was in about a minute of it, and he just turned to his second wife, and she said, yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. And instead of being happy, like, my God, my problems are over, I was just amazed. And I remember that instant so well. I'll never forget it. I remember sitting there in that kitchen in that house in Tucson that they built. Incredible multi-million-dollar house that they designed themselves and did exactly the way they wanted it because he worked his ass off. And I'm sitting there in the kitchen, and I just remember thinking, so that's what it's like. This is what it feels like to have parents. I'm not going to hit the ground. I'm not going to get killed in the fall. Somebody's going to catch me. This is what it feels like. And normal people feel like this all the time. They don't feel like their life is about to end any minute now because of whatever is coming next, This is what it feels like to have parents. Enjoy this few moments, because now you have something to compare your life to. And so when you're dealing with addicts like this, they don't know any better. We don't know any better. We can see better behavior. We just don't know how people do it. Because we can even intellectually be aware of they're not afraid of everything all the time. And okay, how do they do that? I don't know. They're just born with it. When I say afraid of everything all the time, by the way, I need to be clear on this. I'm not aware of ever being like afraid of anything. I know that sounds like a bold statement, but I'm not afraid in the sense that you would think of afraid. I flew airplanes and did, I'm not afraid of much of anything, but I'm worried all the time. And that is that's ultimate fear. It's just this perpetual fear. I was talking to Natasha on the way out this morning. Slept later than I wanted to. I'd been working a lot of hours here. I was really, really tired, and I wanted to get up at 8, and I ended up sleeping till 1, and I just couldn't wake up. And I was starting to stress about getting into the studio and stuff, and she said something or other. And I said, honey, I live in a burning building. That's what my life is like. I just live in a burning building. And when things are really good, all of the fires are under control, but they're never out. And they're never going to be out. When I see something flaring up over here, I realize I got to address this issue now. And when I address this issue, that means I'm not going to be paying these issues, and they're going to start to burn. And that's what life is like. You're in a burning building all the time. You're never able to relax because you don't have the neurons. You just don't. You never got them. You never got that sense of security. Like, I don't have to worry about this. Never got it. And if you don't get it by the time you're 4 or 5, it's over. You'll never recover. And that's okay. There's lots of people who have things that happen to them early when they never recover. I wouldn't trade this for much of anything. I mean, I'd much rather have this situation than be blind, for example, or anything else. And so what you end up with, Chris, is that you end up with a bunch of people who are built like this. And here's where it gets actually kind of interesting. One of the ways that addicts find to escape their pain is through applause, is external validation. The best thing I ever heard about this was when somebody was talking about Robin Williams shortly after he committed suicide, and they were saying Robin Williams was always trying to impress his mother. He became so funny because he couldn't get his mom's attention, so it was always Robin Williams had to think of something to do to get her attention. And the guy said, so Robin Williams' problem was it was always had to be Robin Williams plus. Robin Williams plus this routine. Robin Williams plus this money. Robin Williams plus this special show. Robin Williams plus. It was never, Robin Williams alone was never good enough. It was just had to always be Robin Williams plus. I said, that's exactly what it's like. It's exactly what it's like. And so some small percentage of these broken people end up in show business because applause and recognition for doing good work is a dopamine hit. It's a medication. And people pursue that the same way they pursue cocaine or heroin or whatever. The difference is that depending on your situation, that search for approval can be, I'm not saying it is or even always is or mostly is, but it can be something that's not self-destructive. It all depends on who you're doing it for. I don't do this. I tell myself I don't do this for me. I certainly like reading nice comments that somebody felt like I made a difference in their life. That makes me feel just fundamentally good. That's not just a dopamine hit. That's a sense of purpose in life. But all of these celebrities, and I mean pretty much all of them, are broken people. And that's why you should never listen to them, because they have no emotional foundations. They are people that have chased something to cover up the fact that they don't have the fundamental confidence and security to not have to chase these things. So whenever you hear a celebrity talking, including me, because I'm a gigantic celebrity, it's amazing how often I don't get stopped at places. You got to understand that they're coming from a different island, and more and more people are coming off of that island, and we're getting less and less capable of dealing with it. But I think the thing I'll probably just say is this: are John Voight and Gary Sinise also broken? John Voight and Gary Sinise are two of the best people I know. They're two of the best men I know. I have to assume that they're broken on some level because normal people don't go into this business. And I like to think that I'm trying to be as good a man as possible. So it's a question of, ultimately, I think it's a question of, even before you develop or don't develop these emotional attachments, I really think on some level, maybe it's that the parents provide something else other than what you needed, but, I think it comes down to really it's like the heart of gold, you can have people who are badly broken. If their heart's in the right place, then they'll do their best. And if they're not, then they're horrible. You can tell a lot about people by how they behave when they're drunk, when they're really smashed. Mean drunks almost always are mean people. I'm a hilarious drunk. When I'm really smashed, I just love everybody. I put my arm around everybody. I really can't tell you how much you mean. Blah, blah, blah. And I don't know where that came from. My parents did the best they could. My mom was kidnapped from her mother when she was 3, and was later raised by psychopaths in the Battle of Britain. She was placed in a home with a schizophrenic. So she did the best that she could, and I love her for that. But I don't feel the same attachment to her that you do towards your mom. And I wish that weren't true. It's not an easy thing to say. It's not her fault. It's not my fault, but there it is. Gummit says we're all broken in some way. I'm not arguing about that. But there is a binary division. I know that when you're dealing with trying to explain people depression, and they'll say, well, why are you so sad? Well, I'm depressed. And people will say, well, I get sad all the time too. I was sad for like 3 months. Yes, I understand that. You were sad about 3 months because something happened and made you sad. I get it. You know, your wife died or your dog or whatever. That's sad for sure. But that's not your natural state. And so everything that comes naturally to people who are well parented either doesn't happen or it happens through effort, therapy, medication, all this other stuff. None of this is particularly easy to admit, you know. It's not like I'm proud of this. On the contrary, some of these things are very, very difficult to say out loud. And I do it because somebody asked, and I know there are other people out there who know that it's who this sounds familiar, to whom this sounds familiar, and those people need to know that they're not alone and that they're not. I got to be careful about this. And they need to know that it's not their fault, but it is their responsibility. That's rather good, actually. That's pretty much exactly right. I got that just about perfectly. That's exactly it. If you've got an addictive personality, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. You can claim that as a reason for being just a crap person for the rest of your life, or being a drug addict, or you know, or a wife beater, whatever the case may be. It's not your fault, but it's not an excuse. You know, you ultimately, like everybody else, you have free choice. You have the ability to make a decision about things. And maybe the decision is much harder than it is for other people, but you still have the ability to make a decision. And, you know, we just kind of hobble along on our crutches, and especially if we're in show business and we've gotten decent at dealing with things, we can create a world where not only does it not look like we're broken, but it make it look like we're the best people in the world. If we show you only the things we want to show you, we can get away with anything, and so can anybody else for that matter. But every time I see some celebrity, I'm trying to think of one that would be like really annoying at the time or something. You know, no, I'm just looking for somebody really egregious. Anyway, when I see them pontificating about, let's take, what's his name? It's right in front of me. I'm not going to ask for this because I'm getting tired of asking. Hang on. It's right in front of me. Mark Ruffalo. So every time I hear Mark Ruffalo talking about how bad everybody is and stuff, what I and how bad the country is and all the rest of it, I don't take that seriously. I look at it as a guy who is pretty badly damaged and has a lot to prove. And in the case of actors, many of them achieve great fame as actors. But that's not enough for them, because it's never enough for anybody. There's never enough for an addict. Addicts never say, I've done enough cocaine for the day, I'm going to put some away for a rainy day. That never happens. So guys like Ruffalo can have all of the accolades and credit and applause that they need for being great actors, but that's still not enough for them. There's still a part of them that's saying, yeah, but, I'm smart too, and I have to prove it to everybody. So they'll say things that they think makes them sound smart, and it doesn't. Nobody cares. You don't have any special insights, and being famous doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. You're just virtue signaling. See, virtue signaling in that way is not even like a voluntary thing, like going out to a party. It's more like a desperation thing, like clinging to a life belt. You know, it's just I can't have anybody thinking I'm stupid. And you can recover to the point where. Eric says, my name is Mark Ruffalo and I'm a famaholic. Yeah, he's actually a very good actor, and most of them are. But being a good actor doesn't mean you're smart. And your reason you're trying to tell people that you're smart is because because your lack of security about your intellect. This is like the people at Starbucks who are wearing glasses that have no prescriptions in them and carrying War and Peace under their arms. People who are really smart don't have to do that. They don't have to show everybody how smart they are. They just don't. So anyway, I hope that helped, Chris. Yeah, so it's a real problem. And it's ultimately, whenever you think of drug abuse or anything that's a distraction that people overuse is usually a form of an addictive personality. When I say overuse, I mean I'm not an alcoholic. I don't think I've ever bought alcohol just for myself at home, but I've certainly gone out and countless drinks and fun times. I go out to the restaurant with my wife or with other people, and I can have a martini or two and be fine and not have another one for 8 weeks. Likewise, there are some people that can deal with certain things relatively easily because it's not their drug of choice, you know? And I don't know. I don't know how I stumbled into this idea that you know, this whole idea of America was enough to was this idea of trying to protect this country and what it's based on, and there's all these whole Western civilization thing, that it was enough of a draw to pull you out from underneath your rock. But that's basically what it was for me. I thought it was important enough for me to do something about. So there you go. Hold on now. Steve Whoop says, okay, I believe you, Boris, 3 days sober. I didn't see the beginning of that, but anyway, let me just tell you one last thing here. And this is something that I think the chaps over at Daily Wire will never get, because none of them have these problems. And this is why we won't be effective at reaching people who do. Dave Big Booty said, I'm not addicted to cocaine, I just love the smell. It's clever. So let me just tell you about the power of something like this. The power of, it's not the power of hope, that's just too much of a cliche. It's just maybe a way out. So what you've got when you've got high-level functioning addicts is you got people who are broken, they know they're broken, and they know that the medication that they're taking is either narcotics or drugs or gambling or sex or whatever, is actually killing them and making them worse. And they know this. So they've hit their bottom. It's not like they want to go to AA or NA. It's just that the pain of not going is overwhelming, so they end up in a room. I was told to go by a therapist, only therapist I had in my life till then. This was right when this movie collapsed, and I was just, everything I thought I was going to do and wanted to do was just on fire, and I just couldn't take it anymore. So she said, you need to go to these Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and I just said, look, this is the only thing I can say with some pride, you know, at this point in my life. I was 26. And that is, I don't have a drug and alcohol problem. She goes, yeah, I know, just go. So I went to two meetings, new member meetings, and I just sat there staring at the floor, just pissed off at having to be there and stuff. Went to the third meeting, same kind of thing, and then somewhere through towards the end of this meeting, I'm in a, you know, like a church room, back room in a church kind of thing, and somebody's made some cookies, and there's coffee there, and a bunch of chairs and fluorescent lighting and everything, and I'm still like, I'm only here because I was told to come here. I don't want to be here. And I was sitting in this room and listening to everybody talk, and I thought, oh, okay, you know, so sad. And then across the room, this 45-year-old black man basically raised his hand, and he started telling me about my life. I mean, everything that I was doing. He was just bam, 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 would do this and this, and this. And I felt my feet get so hot, I thought I was going to melt the linoleum on the floor. I just felt so hot, just physically burning. And I'm looking over at this guy, and I'm thinking, we probably had very different childhoods, me and this guy, but that's me, and something going on here. So here's the point. So at the end of every meeting, no one ever forces you to do anything in an NA meeting or an AA meeting. 12-step programs, just absolute genius. It's more than genius. It's miraculous. So nobody ever forces you to do anything. And at the end of the meeting, whoever's running the meeting will say, so is there anybody who wants to, you know, come up and take the first step? The first step is you got to admit you got a problem. Publicly, you know. You've got to admit that you're powerless over your addiction or your drinking or whatever. And if you do that, that involves getting up at the end of the meeting and walking to wherever this guy who's running the meeting is, or woman that's running the meeting. And if you do that, they give you a poker chip, a white plastic poker chip like this. And after you get a week without drinking or doing drugs or whatever, a week staying clean, they'll give you, I forget the colors, I used to know them by heart, a green poker chip. And after a month, you get an orange poker chip. And after 3 months, you get a red poker chip. And after 6 months, you get this poker. And I can't tell you how many lives I saw being saved by a piece of plastic that big. You would say, well, what's the power of that? It's like, well, the reason it works is I put them on my keychain. And when people are so tempted to go out and use again or drink again or whatever, to fall off the wagon, just go back out to whatever is comfortable. And rather than stay at home and suffer, they'll just go out and get drunk and deal with the consequences later. The desire for that is so overwhelming, it's impossible to beat, except for these bloody little, 3-cent poker chips. Because what these things are is they represent an investment in time. You did a week without drinking. A week. Here's your chip to prove it. You did a week. Are you going to throw this week away? Can you make it? Forget about can you make it through the night? Can you make it through the next 10 minutes? Can you not go out for an hour? We'll deal with what happens at 10 o'clock when it's 10 o'clock. Can you just not go out for an hour now? Well, I really want to go out. I know you want to go out, but can you? I'm talking to yourself like this. Well, I don't want to go in there. I'm not going to lie about that. I've got a blue chip. I've got 3 months sober. I'm not going to risk the chip. That's astonishing. It's just astonishing, and how powerful it is, and how many people I've seen personally and talked to, and these are some of the finest people I ever met, basically saying, I wanted to go out so badly, but I just got my blue chip. I just got 6 months, and I just couldn't. Thank you, Brian. I just couldn't. I couldn't give it up. I couldn't give it up. So what this piece of plastic is it represents a month or 6 months of really, really, really difficult grinding pain that they've invested in order to get better. And if they go out and use this, there's not like a chip police who's enforcing whether or not you were drinking or not. You're there because you've got nowhere else to go. If you lose your sobriety or you lose 6 months being clean, you'll take the chip off yourself because you've already lied to yourself most of your life. There's no reason to keep lying about this thing. So if I go out, I'm gonna have to lose not just the blue chip, everything that comes before it. I have to start with a white chip again, and that can often make the difference. Sometimes not, but it often can. And this is how people who are broken cope. And it needs to be said, for those of you who are listening, there's something really tremendously noble about this. Really, really noble about this. Because like I said, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And for the people that have this ongoing crippling pain and force themselves to walk away from the pain medication because they know that the pain medication is killing them and killing the people they love, that requires a fair amount of courage and a fair amount of goodness. And so my experience has been the very best people that I've met. I can't say that. Some of the best people I've met are people that have actually beaten alcoholism or beaten drug addiction. They haven't had a drink for 25 years. Those people, recovering alcoholics, they know they will never be social drinkers. I'm a social drinker because I'm not an alcoholic. I'm an addict. I have different coping mechanisms. But those people know that if they have one drink that night, then they're never going to stop again. So, Brian says, my roommate has taken me for Al-Anon meetings and met many people who are many decades sober. Yeah, Al-Anon and Nar-Anon, or Narcanon, these are for people who are relatives of alcoholics or addicts, because we put those people through hell. Mostly it's for children of alcoholics or whatever, but it's hard. I mean, my sister married an addict, and the things that he ended up doing they weren't just unbelievable, they were like heartbreaking. You know, she didn't know it at the time, but you know, she'd come back and she'd look for her car keys, and she remembers where she hung them up, and she'd say, I'm inventing the name, Dave, where are my car keys? What do you mean, honey? I don't know. Well, I just hung them here. Sweetheart, I didn't see them. I don't know what happened to them. Find out later that Dave sold her car for cocaine money and tried to convince her that it got stolen. And she said after they got divorced, she said, the first thing I remember that first day was, I'm not crazy. I left my car keys here last night, and here they are in the morning. I'm not crazy. I'm not, I'm not getting gaslit over everything. So, yeah, I know people, it's a great deal of this is just having the courage to just face the shame of it. I know a woman who I respected and liked very, very much in these programs. And when I first got to know her, she came in at a meeting and just started crying hysterically. And she was crying hysterically because she had taken her dog's pain medication. That's not easy to own up to. Many, 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 many people there, most of them would talk about how they stole money from their grandparents, stole money from their parents, retirement fund or their food money or whatever. There's a great scene in, what is it in? Is it in The Wire? No, it's in The Corner, which is the book that The Wire was based on. It's called The Corner, and they made a 6-episode version of The Corner. And there's a scene in that series where the young boy whose mom is an addict and whose dad is an addict and who sells drugs and stuff. No, that's not right. It's the father. He asks his mother, would be the kid's grandmother. He says, mother says, I need you to run to the store and get me some rice and some milk. And he says, okay, I'll go for you. And she says, okay, here's $20. Gives him a list of things that he has to get. He's got $20 in his hand. He walks out that door, and he's walking down this burned out ghetto to this corner store run by Koreans behind these, steel bars and everything. And this money's just burning a hole in his hand. It's just burning a hole in his hand. And he walks into the store, and then they cut back to the house, and he puts down the groceries and hands her back the change, and it all comes to $20. And this is like a victory of D-Day proportions, It's just a victory beyond imagination. The mother can't believe it. He can't believe it. He didn't take the money that his mom gave him for groceries for the family dinner. He didn't take it and go and get high on it. He actually didn't do it. Man, that's some rough stuff. And I don't know how many criminals are addicts. I know a lot of people commit crime to get drug money. There are a lot of people who are just plain murderers, nothing to do with addiction. But we're going to be facing a tsunami of this. And it's going to be a challenge. But you can't cure it unless you know what it is. And you can't, well, first of all, you can't cure it anyway. You can certainly deal with it. You can minimize it. You can, if you got 2 broken legs, you can get a crutch, or you can get a wheelchair or one of those little power scooters or whatever, and that's how you're going to go through life. It is better than sitting there doing nothing. And these antidepressants, especially the SSRIs, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, Prozac was the first one. Those are game changers. They really are, because it turns out that if you don't get this nurturing or whatever you need, you're just missing neurons, and your brain chemistry's screwed up for the rest of your life. And so when I first took them in '93, I think I was probably 2 quarts low on serotonin. You mean, you put the dipstick in and there's nothing even at the bottom. Just way low. And first time I ever got prescribed Prozac was in 1993, and it takes Prozac 3 or 4 days to really come up to speed. But I took the first Prozac capsule out of my life about 7 o'clock one night, and I woke up the next morning at 11, and I just sat up and I just said, this is what it's like. This is what it's like to not be in this burning building. It was just clear as day to me. It's like, this is what normal people feel. This is how normal people feel. It's a wondrous experience, and it's it's changed a lot of lives. This thing we're facing now is different than this. I don't know what this is. I think all of the. I hear you there, Steve. But you got to, Steve. You just do. Just do it now. When I'm done, you don't want to miss a precious word of this, but when I'm finished, get up, walk around the house at least, or the apartment, or walk around the block, get up and walk. That helps a lot. Just get out of the house, man. That helps a lot. All the stuff I've been talking about, all these addiction problems, are a result of under-nurturing. And it seems to me that most of the problems and pathologies I see coming our way, at least mostly among young people, is that they're over-nurtured. I don't know what to do out of that. It's a different kind of thing, They're over-nurtured. They're not kids who are robbed of their childhood so much as they're kids who have been robbed of their adulthood. They'll never grow up. They're like a mirror image, They're not locked in a world where everything is immediately going to go on fire. They're locked in a world where nothing can go on fire ever because they don't want it to. And I don't know what to do about that. Infidel 42 says, yep, I'm 17 years in EMS and I've met like 2 homeless guys who weren't severely mentally ill or heavy addicts. Yeah, we don't have a homeless problem. That's why the Democrats constantly say we got to build more housing. They want to give more housing because they think that if they get money and hand out money to people, they'll get votes, and they're right. It's not a housing problem. It's a mental health problem. It's 7 degrees out going for a walk. Well, Steve, man up, dude. Don't have to go far. Just open the door, let it hit you in the face like a baseball bat, turn around, go inside, give yourself a pat on the back. I'm serious as I can be. Just do that. Simple thing like that. Just do that. You'll be amazed how good you feel. Just go stand in the door, take the 7 degrees in the face, count to 10, come back inside, and you'll have won a little victory tonight for what it's worth. I guarantee it. Just because I asked you to, just because it's the right thing to do. And so, well, just do it. You can do 10 seconds in 7 degrees. Put on a jacket. I'm not saying you have to go out there naked or wet or anything. Just take 7 degrees of cold in the face for 10 seconds, come back inside, you win for the day. You made it through the day. Anyway, this is, I suspect this is my superpower, This is what 2 miles? All right, man, freaking super addict. One of the things that I really enjoyed about Narcotics Anonymous, my time in Narcotics Anonymous, 2 years, I guess. And the fact that I'm not still there, rather, is an indication. Many people, went from being drug addicts to recovery addicts, and they would never leave NA ever. They could never. And anybody who did leave, this done me a lot of good. I think I can go out and face the world again. No, that's just your disease talking. Maybe, John. Maybe not. Maybe I'm actually a little better. But they all had great sense of humor because they've had to deal with the pain for so long, and laughing at it is one of the ways you cope with things. That's why the Russians have such a terrific sense of dark humor, because it's the only way you can deal with some of this stuff. But I always had a great sense of humor, and I remember once in one of these meetings or something, I was saying, I just put my hand up and I said, my mission here is not just to get better. I said this verbatim, I plan to set the world land speed record for recovery. I'm gonna be on the cover of Narcotics Anonymous magazine, and everybody was laughing at this, because I was making fun of myself, and then one of them guys said, Bill, some are sicker than most, and you are one of those people. Humor is medicine on so many levels. It's unbelievable. Anyway, hope that helped. So yes, it is an addiction, and by the way, since owning up to things and having the courage to own up to them is part of finding the courage to recover from them, it's something I'm starting to really suffer from. It's actually starting to significantly affect my life, these video shorts. And the reason that they have the effect on me is because they put the hook in me right where I'm most likely to bite, and that is on my curiosity. They show me things, I see something I'm interested in, and it's not like a cat video, although nothing wrong with cat videos. I'll see some little short about the scale of the solar system or something, and the next thing you know, it's 6 hours later. It's still addiction. So, hope that helped. Yeah, we're going to be dealing with a lot of problems, and we're going to have people who know what the hell these problems are and what they feel like and how to deal with them, and not just people who say, don't say no. I just say no. Just Chris Taylor again, just because this is what Shorty said. Couldn't global stressors such as a year without a summer serve to resynchronized global seculums? I think that was a Marusha Dark question from Thursday. This idea of this fourth turning cycle, 80-year cycle more or less. How do these things sync up with other societies? And Chris said a global stressor could do that. Yeah, a pandemic, a Black Death pandemic could probably synchronize a lot of these seculums, these 80-year cycles. That's a really good idea. Something that hits the whole world at the same time. Catastrophic flood could probably do that too, I would think. But in any event, that's an interesting point. P.S. My son's junior high had 3 houses. His high school calls them neighborhoods instead and has 4 per grade. Neighborhoods, how weak is that? The schools do not seem to pit them against each other competitively, though. In addition to all the high-tech toys of a modern high school, it also has its own greenhouses, beehives, and livestock ranch. Well, this is Texas. Neighborhoods. Perfect. What a great way to water down a perfectly fine idea. Can't even call them houses anymore. And we can't say, by the way, the best thing that the division of school into houses was for been in America long enough to call it phys ed. We called it PE back then. But you're never out of, competition. Today it's going to be Morgan House versus Patterson, and it's going to be Saltus versus the green guys. So there you go. All right, moving on here. We got Marusha Dark. That's it, and then we can go home. I can go home in peace, and finally go to the halls of my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall no longer be ashamed, rather. Marusha Dark, topic, A New Hope. Hey Bill, you'll be happy to learn that I have another opportunity for you to riff on your recent favorite topic. I was listening to a Tony Robbins interview just now, and at the end, at his closing point, he brought up the fourth turning. His take was that recognizing the power of seasonal changes is only the first step. The second step is to be able to utilize it to maximum advantage, knowing to plant in spring, reap in summer, conserve in winter, etc. The third step is to create your own cycles and patterns independent of existing cycles. For instance, we were once at the mercy of the change of seasons to grow crops, but we now use hydroponics and climate control to effectively be able to grow crops year-round, thus breaking the wheel and breaking our dependency on the cycle to survive. We're currently in winter and have probably another 5 to 10 years of it left before spring arrives again. You've talked a lot about the first step, which is noticing the pattern of socio-political history. How can we then apply it and make the most of it, of the cycle, and how can we ultimately break the cycle to break the wheel of power, as Daenerys Stormborn put it? I'm not taking any advice from Tony Robbins, Marusha, because I thought Tony Robbins was a remarkable guy and just really amazing. And then I did an afterburner, a firewall called Eat the Rich, which was actually done by Iowa Hawk. He did the data, and it was entirely his argument. I just took it and set it to music, so to speak. I did one of my best firewalls ever called Eat the Rich, and it basically said, let's take all of the money that McDonald's makes, all the money that Enron makes, all this money, blah blah blah, and let's just spend it on this, and this much would get us through to April 14th, and then if we take all the money that comes from NFL sports, it'll get us to April 19th. It was a brilliant piece of analysis done by a brilliant guy. Iowa Hawk's the smartest guy on the field, and I asked him, I said, can I just take this stuff and put a narrative behind it and run it? He said, yeah, man, absolutely. So I made a calendar of all the different months, and I just show red bars showing how if we take all the money from the corporations, then it would get us this far, and so on. I was very proud of it. I thought it was really good work. And then several months later, somebody said, hey, Tony Robbins has kind of, copied your idea. And I thought, well, he probably just did a nod to it or something. I didn't go looking for it because I didn't want to get angry. A few years later, I saw the video, and he recreated my background calendar to the frame. He recreated everything I said to the frame. He didn't just use it as inspiration. He just plain stole it, word for word, including the background. And at that point, I thought, I'm not sure I buy anything you say from this point, Tony Robbins. You certainly had the money to, at the very least, give me credit for this, but no. And half of the comments below this, half of them, were Bill Whittle did this a year and a half ago. You're no good for a thing. No, we didn't hear anything about that. We have no idea who this guy is. They took my calendar verbatim. I mean, every single block was blocked the same way. So I'm not so impressed with Tony Robbins, to be honest with you, and I suspect that if Tony Robbins said that, then I want to know who he got the idea from, because I don't believe that you do that just once. I don't think that you do that just once. I have often, whenever I can remember that it's somebody else's, I will say it's somebody else's, and when I can't remember whose it was, I'll say, this wasn't me, I just can't remember who it was. That's kind of like, going out and drinking and then keeping your chips on your ring. It's just cheating yourself. You're just not fooling anybody. Just low. So if he's saying, the whole purpose of things to come is to help prepare ourselves. I'm just going to walk through these steps as I see them. And hopefully it'll help. It got a big reaction, and I think it's probably the thing to do right now. Ultimately, it's extremely optimistic. It's like, okay, so we're not going to hell. We're just dipping down into the sulfurous fumes, and we're going to come back out on the other side. And how do we come back out on the other side as quickly and as easily as possible? Take as little damage as we can. We're going to take damage. We've already taken a ton of damage. What do we do about it? If you don't know where the threat's coming from, you can't prepare for it. In the last crisis, it was fleets of Japanese battleships and aircraft carriers, and the Wehrmacht and the Luftwaffe. This time it's inner cities that are murder pits. It's tens of millions of military-aged men crossing our border into mostly our southern states. And it's an entire half of the country that's neurotic and entitled and spoiled and will be perpetual children. By the way, when I said you can't cure the addiction, you can't cure the over-nurturing either. These entitled brats, I'm not condemning the whole generation by any means. The Gen Zs are going to be the soldiers in this, but those of them who are adult children are never going to grow up. We need to understand that. They're never going to grow up. The best of them will be able to cope. The rest of them are going to need to be taken care of because they're broken. But we've never seen as a society, in my knowledge of history, we've never seen as a society the percentage of broken people that we're going to be dealing with, and that's the crisis. So I'd rather be dealing with 40 million broken people than 40,000 incoming hydrogen warheads. That's my personal feeling on this. And so as crises go, not only do I think this is survivable, I think this one's relatively easy. I don't think this stuff, if I'm right about this, is going to have much direct effect on us, on most of us, at all. Not direct effect. In terms of I don't think most conservatives are going to get gunned down in the streets. I don't think most conservatives are going to have to, we're going to be the home front. We're going to be like the factories in Wichita that are making the bombers that go fight over in Germany. But in the cities, it's going to be rough. In these, people say it's going to be a civil war, but that's not really right. A civil war is when the country is at war with itself, and we're not really at war with ourselves so much as we're at war with people who live here, if that makes any sense, These tens of millions of of military-aged illegal men in this country, I don't consider that a civil war. I consider that a covert invasion that's taking place in plain sight every day. The violence from the inner cities when cities become unlivable, like San Francisco and others, and New York especially, most of those people aren't going to leave. They're going to stay in, escape from New York kind of thing. It's really almost, from a political and a philosophical point of view, it is going to be like they blow the bridges to New York. They won't physically blow them, but most inner city people will never leave the inner cities because they might as well be going to the moon. The only thing they know is what they know. They know their little neighborhood. They've never moved more than a few houses, Jack the Ripper, Charles Lechmere moved 2 or 3 times during the course of his life, and every single time it was within, half a mile of where he lived before. He was always in Whitechapel. It's very, cities are going to be a bad place to be if you're living in a city, but half of the population of America is now considered urban. So, we'll see. And the good news is most of the people who lean Democrat or lean left because they think it's nice, we're already seeing these people waking up that this is not what the future that they want. And then you're just going to be left with the true believers and the psychotically violent, the invasion of America group, and then you're going to deal with the perpetually childish, the legions of neurotics. It's going to be like Thermopylae. You're just going to look out there and you're going to see 400,000 neurotic Karens screaming at the top of their lungs and demanding to speak to the manager. That's essentially what we're going to be dealing with, I think, at least here in the sane parts of the country. So yeah, there are going to be people out there demonstrating on behalf of Hamas, and then there's going to be people out there demonstrating on behalf of Israel, and then there are going to be people who are, it's going to happen. Spartans, what is your profession? We're therapists. Therapists, policemen, and exorcists. That's what we're going to need. Anyway, it's a fun show. And happy to say I'm going to be staying here for a while until we turn on the new site. And I'll put up a quick little video saying, hey, we are doing our very little best here. And we'll see what we can do. So once we get that, we can move on. Tonight we dine in hell. Our arrows will blot out the sun. Well, then we shall fight in the shade. See, that's how you beat these. That's how you beat these people. It's like, yeah, I mock you. I laugh I fart in your general direction. This show, like all the others, is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com who have kept these lights going and who just been here the whole time. God bless you all. And I think you'll be pleased with what we've put together for you. I sure hope so. I'm looking forward to reading the feedback. I just want to make sure we just don't have a torrent of, people whose memberships were dropped or something like that. It's taken a long time to make sure we had a good shot at getting that off. So we will see. But in any event, it's, hey, missed a good show, Roadrunner. It was kind of interesting. And thanks to the members. Thanks to all of you for watching. And I am hoping that we will be, I know the website will be up by Thursday. I might do one Stratosphere Lounge from the other location just so you can see it, because even though it's a whole 7, 10, 12 feet away, it's going to look, I think, pretty cool. All right, so let's clock out with our YouTube people. We'll do Twitch first because they're right here. All right, so thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here on the Stratosphere Lounge or on the Stratosphere Studio, whatever the case may be. Thanks for joining us, and take care. That's out of the way, and then we'll just do YouTube. Doesn't even get a special goodbye. YouTube is just kind of YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, YouTube. Thanks for joining. 111 people. That's astonishing. That's great. Thanks. I hope that did some good. If you're one of those people who are in the same boat I was in, and I just talked about it for the last couple hours. Just don't forget, you're not alone out there. There are people who you don't know who are waiting to help you. And if you wonder why they're being so kind to you, it's because people were kind to them, and they can't pay that back, so they have to pay it forward. If you're going through this kind of thing, find yourself a 12-step program. I cannot recommend it highly enough. You'll meet some of the most interesting people you'll ever meet in your life, and you'll feel a lot better. If you're just consider a 12-step meeting a day as emergency room treatment. Keep you alive while you stop bleeding out, and then you can start working on plugging some of the holes. So if you're one of those folks, you're not alone, and we're all on the same team. So, be of good cheer, because life is beautiful, and you're here, and it's a shame to go through all of it. There's a scene in a movie, I forget what it was. There's a couple guys walking down the street, and there's an old guy on the porch, and somebody says, "Hey, how's life treating you, Dave?" And he says, "It's taken for goddamn ever." Don't be that guy. All right, thanks, YouTube. We will see you in a couple days, and thanks for being here. So, take care.